Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Dr. Tevelite. And thank you to the Sagers for having me here with Band Directors Talk Shop. Welcome to camp. First day of camp. This is a week that always means just a lot to me. And so I hope you have a great week. I love Thanksgiving and I love Christmas. Band camp is right up there as one of the best weeks of the year. So, yeah, Dr. Tevelite mentioned a little bit about how we were joined at the hip when I was his graduate student in 2003, which sounds like ancient history now because it's kind of becoming ancient history. But for those of you who don't know me, I'm the director of bands at Canyon High School. Just finished 24 years of teaching. I've had a lot of opportunity to observe student teachers and work with coach and clinic bands. And so a lot of the advice and things that I have developed in my time has also been imparted to others and has allowed me to think about putting this in a session that can be imparted here today. Have a wife of 20, almost 22 years and 5 kids. I think that was actually Tamari did a session kind of blurb for me, and she said something like, you know, all this successful teaching and 5 kids. And I kind of cracked up when I saw that. It's not really an option. If you have the 5 kids, you got to take care of all 5 of the kids. So, I mean, it's just, you know, it's the lot we have. And then in addition to that, I compose and I play in the symphony, and those are all wonderful things. I do want to preface today by saying that I'm not a mental health expert. I'm not a physical health expert. I might be a spiritual health. I don't know. We can pray, but I'm not coming at this as somebody who is going to speak to you about counseling or therapy or anything like that. If that's what you need, please, by all means, I won't turn you away from that concept, but we're just going to be very brass tacks with the way that we discuss how to approach this in the routine of teaching. There is going to be a lot of take it or leave it today. And also, I hope there's a fair amount of things that you're like, yeah, I already do that, or a variation of that, and you have seen the benefit. So knowing that we have a really wide and diverse group in the room, we'll cover a lot of bases, or a lot of exceptional people in this room who could also give this clinic. So let's dive in. One of the biggest issues with burnout is decision fatigue. And so I want you to think through this for me for a second. Decision fatigue is what happens at the end of the day when you know what you should be doing and you do not do that because you're mentally worn out from the day. That's why we make poor choices to stay up too late, poor choices to eat the wrong kinds of things. We don't reach for the healthy thing, we reach for the vending machine, right? At that point, you're just kind of mentally spent. And I think music education and band directing is the epitome of decision fatigue. So let's see if we all have played this scenario in our band halls. You are listening to your band rehearse, and there's about 12 things that you think probably need to be addressed. And before you cut off, you're trying to figure out which one should you address first, because this kid who we thought had the A flat down is no longer playing A flat again. And so do I do this or do I do that? Well, I've got a kid in the trumpet section who's flagging me down to go to the bathroom, and another kid with their clarinet is wandering up to show me that that spring came out again. And at the middle of all of that, the principal comes over the intercom and says, we're having a faculty meeting today after school. Sorry, it's sudden notice. It's during your tuba sectional. And you just kind of reach a chaotic mess. And that might be second period. And that might be Monday. And we have a whole rest of the week with that, right? So the average person, not even a band director, the average person has about 35,000 decisions that they make every single day, from the mundane to the real, to the important, to the not important. And I don't know what it is for band directors. I think it might be 35,000 bajillion decisions, and a lot of those have to happen in the middle of a band rehearsal. So what happens is we reach that decision fatigue very often, and it is very easy for us to pour from a cup that empties really early in the day or really early in the week. And what happens is, as we're trying to make all these decisions, we are also fighting the loss of margin time, which is that time that we have that is away from the job, where we just get to be the human beings that we are and not have to be Mr. or Miss so-and-so, right? So we're not only fighting all the decisions that have to be made, we're fighting all of the loss of margin time, because we have before school, after school sectionals, we have the booster meetings, We have the playing assignments that have to be graded and listened to, and that's not including concerts and contests and parades and tuba Christmas, and all of the things that come up in our profession that take away from the time that we have. That time outside of work that dwindles is really the margin time that is supposed to be refilling and resetting us for the next day. And as we lose that, we don't get the ability to come back to the job the next day fresh. Our to-do list is not getting any shorter, it's getting longer, and is going to eat into that margin time. So the daily grind of decision fatigue and the non-existent margin time, this is the exact pathway you would take if you were trying to burn yourself out, okay? Am I preaching to anybody else in the room or just myself? Yeah, this is that session that you give and you go, this is really good advice that I should make sure that I take personally as I tell these other people that they should do it. So combating these things is really about reclaiming control, okay? We can't fix everything. We have a lot more control over our areas of our job and our lives with the implementation of routines than maybe we think that we do. So here are a couple of things. When you see the word routine, it may conjure that you're going to be in a rut, that you're going to be doing something that's mindless and mechanical and robotic. And that can create sort of a negative approach to why you might want to push back against routines. We are creative people. We want to be creative, and a lot of times habits and routines feel like they suck the creativity out of our lives. But what we'll see is that the implementation of those routines, procedures, and habits allows us to actually be more freed up to be creative and energetic for our students. So we'll talk a lot about the systems that we put in place today, first starting with some personal examples and then going into the professional. But really the idea is that these habits and routines help us to reclaim the time in our day that often gets lost due to just the hectic chaos of the day. So Abraham Lincoln famously stated, if you give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, I will spend the first 4 sharpening the axe. So let's talk about what that might look like to sharpen our axes to be able to be better at chopping down that tree. So in 2019, in December, back when the world was pre-COVID and it was not nutty, I saw a loose Facebook post about a book that was relatively new called Atomic Habits. And I downloaded on Audible, listened to that in December of 2019, and there have been very few things in my life that I can point back to and say that literally changed my life, but that book really did. Because what I realized was I was a mess of a person that was disorganized, that was not putting systems and habits in place. It is literally the first book that I read at the beginning of every single year. So if you call me on January 2nd and you say, what are you reading? You're going to already know what the answer is. It's that good. Show of hands, who's read Atomic Habits? Okay, clinic is over. Those of you who've read it are dismissed, and those of you who haven't just need to go get a copy, and then we're done. Let's go get tacos, right? Okay, so here's why that book is so impactful. If you look at the left picture, this is kind of a snapshot of the very first thing I did to implement a routine or a habit into my life. And that is, I take about 10 to 12 minutes at the end of my day to just get everything ready that I possibly can do for the start of the next day. Okay, so you see I've got my Bible reading out, my coffee mug is there, which means the coffee is also set and ready to start. Breakfast is out, my water bottle is out. What you don't see is my outfit for the next day is picked. I have put my phone on the charger for the night. All of these things that I think of as like this really long list of things that have to be done is 10 to 12 minutes. And the reason is there are 2 Erics. There are 2 of you also. There's nighttime Eric, who does not make great decisions. And there's morning Eric, who makes much better decisions, but might not be awake yet. And morning Eric loves nighttime Eric when Eric takes care of this routine and procedure. Because I get up the next morning and I'm ready to attack the day, but I'm not awake yet. And so the fact that I walk into the kitchen, sit down at the bar, and all the stuff is ready to go, and all I have to do is just go through the steps that I set up for last night, it just makes the start of every day so much easier. Now, if you look at the right, these are my 2 youngest of the 5. This is Jackson and Harrison. We're going to be doing this parenting thing for a long time. My oldest is 19, my youngest is 8. So we're in for the long haul. Now, parents in the room, where are you? Bedtime is a whole process, correct? Okay. So I get bedtime figured out for the 40-something-year-old adult that I am. And then I start thinking, okay, James Clear, let's see if these atomic habits can be applied to elementary school age kids. So what had happened, they're very close in age, but they're not twins. They're 14 months apart, but they run basically parallel lives. They're one grade apart and they're best friends. It's great. Parenting these two is amazing. But bedtime is like 200% chaos because there's 200% kids who are going to bed at the same time. So what we did was we ended up saying, okay, here are the 5 things that you need to do to go to bed. And we sat down and we assigned each one of them. And then when we say it's time to go to bed, you're going to do these 5 things and you know what they are step by step. And that keeps us from having to sort of chase them through all of those steps. And of course, we have to correct and hold them accountable and coach them through the process from time to time. And other times they hear me just say, guys, in 10 minutes, and then they'll interrupt and they'll say, oh, bedtime routine? Yeah, absolutely. So they'll come in, very last thing, and they'll say, I've done my 5 things or something like that, and I'm going to bed now. And sometimes we will stop and we will say, because I know you're itching to know, the 5 things are go to the bathroom, brush your teeth, get your pajamas on, set your clothes out for tomorrow, and go get a drink of water and set that water glass by your bed. And they know after they've done those 5 things, they hug everybody in the house and they go to sleep. So seeing that change my life and then seeing it become something that was so predictable and easy for them to execute at age 8 and 9 is like, man, you know what? I think James Clear wrote a band directing book and he didn't realize that he was writing a band directing book. So here are a couple of places where I have put some automation and some integration into my lives. I know that there is somebody who's really doing a lot speaking to band directors about using AI and Chat GPT to direct and formulate things. That's super cool. We'll just barely touch on it. And what I'll show you is very, very brief. I do think that is an incredible tool that we can wield to help ourselves. So the first one I'll say is here's Amazon Subscribe and Save on the left. And my wife does all the grocery shopping, but toiletries, anything that I want from the store, she knows that she's going to pick out the wrong razor blades if I try to, tell her what to go pick up. All of those things, I just cannot stand the idea of getting home from work and then going to Walmart and having to go do shopping in the evenings. I'm just ready to be done. I'm a pumpkin at the end of the day, and it's time to get home where I can just kind of fizzle into the person I'm going to be. But when you teach in Canyon, Texas, going to Walmart means that you're going to have between 5 to 10 student sightings and 3 to 5 parent-teacher conferences. So not only is this time and money saved, but when you teach in a small town like we do, this is an opportunity to just be the hermit that I want to be from the hours of about 5:30 to the end of the day. And the cool thing is you can obviously set that up to recur, and it comes in, and about the time I'm thinking I need more shaving cream, it's going to come to the house. So that's one thing that I've done that just kind of automates areas of my life. The other one is this is a Chat GPT window that I pulled up on my phone. We send out a weekly email during the school year to all of our high school band families, and it says, this is what's going on for the week. It's a lot. It's a lot. Yeah, Ann knows. What I realized was it was just these huge paragraphs of information. And it's not mobile friendly at all. So I thought, I wonder if ChatGPT can help with this. The short answer is you toss in what you want your people to know and you tell it to make it mobile friendly. And it does that. It puts page breaks in, it puts emojis in, it streamlines the information, it will bullet point things for you. And all you have to do is just go back and make sure it didn't make some sort of weird mistake, and then you fix it. And I just only started having it be mobile friendly in the last few months of the year, and have gotten so many great pieces of feedback that it's so much easier to read on my phone, and they always know where the information is going to be. Now, the other one that is really helpful is Grammarly. And I want to show you an email I got a few weeks ago, or like last week. Okay, this is David Harper. David just graduated from Canyon High. Here's his email. I made a huge mistake and I left both my alto sax and my soprano sax in my hallway locker, and I didn't grab it on the way out the last day of school. Am I able to get the instruments, or do I have to wait till summer band starts? I'm sorry for the inconvenience. Now, by the way, who leaves their alto and soprano sax at the school after graduating? I guarantee his mother was like, you email him right now and you get those instruments back. So the Grammarly, oh, you have names of people? Okay, got it. The Grammarly extension not only helps you with grammar and spelling and punctuation, but when you open up a response, it'll allow you to pick from some automated responses to the content of that email specifically. It's amazing. And it has all the things that you would expect. Hey, David, sure thing, I'll meet you up there on Tuesday. Hey, David, can you come back when summer band starts? But then you can also kind of create your own. So I wanted to see what Grammarly would do and whether it would let me be snarky. So here's the prompt I gave it. Because you left the instruments after you graduated, they now belong to us. And so, well, I mean, it's not quite there, but I hope that that's coming in an update. And so this is the response back to David. I hope you're doing well. Since the instruments were left after graduation, they now belong to us. Unfortunately, you won't be able to pick them up as we have absorbed them into our inventory. Of course, it's not true. And I ran into David on the 4th of July at our fair on the square. And I said, you're going to get a really weird email from me. And he goes, okay. I said, don't believe it. Come get your saxophones. So even something like that, having those automated responses is so helpful for just those important emails that need to be responded to. But if you know that the response is just basically yes, and you can automate some of those things, it's within your email response. I don't even have to go to a different tab to do it. It's just automated within that. All right, so let's go on. Another way to put routines or automate and stave off symptoms of burnout are to look really seriously at the boundaries we have in our lives. Okay, so when we draw these lines of demarcation to keep everything in its right place, it's so much easier to deal with the struggle of maintaining a healthy work-life balance. And so we'll start with your favorite and mine, this little rectangle of addiction that we all have in our pockets, and kind of talk about some things that if we're not careful, this thing is controlling our lives and it's a tool. We should be in control over this tool. So let's just do a quick exercise. I want you to think for just a moment about the 3 to 5 biggest, most important core memories that you have had in your life. Don't worry, I'm not trying to make anybody cry, and we're not going to share, we're not going to open up, but I want you to think about what are the 3 to 5, like just the biggest moments in your entire life, and just kind of put those in your mental pocket for a second. I have 5 kids, so there's my list right there, right? I should probably 6, right? Okay, with my wife. Now, think about 3 to 5 things that you look forward to every day, like the best part of your day. And you just come up with a couple. I'll tell you a few of mine. Okay, for me, first cup of coffee in the morning, simple pleasure, love that, right? Standing on a podium in front of kids, the best, right? Coming home at the end of the day and being tackled by children who have the same last name as me is great. Laying down and reading at the end of the day. In either your first list of the things that were monumental core memories or the things that you look forward to every single day, how involved was your smartphone? I would suspect it was not present or barely present. And if your smartphone was involved in any of that, it was because it was a tool or a communication component. Maybe the job you thought you would never get, you got, and you found out through your phone. Your phone didn't get you the job, it just communicated it, right? That to me illustrates how important it is to have dominion and authority over your smartphone and not let that get out of order and control you. So here's some tips to outsmart your smartphone. The first one is to reduce notifications. Okay, my phone knows when I get home, it automatically goes to do not disturb. The only people it will push notifications to are the ones that I've allowed it to push notifications to. I'm an iPhone user. It also, I'm sure you've seen it, you know, this person has notifications turned off. If there's a real reason you need to get a hold of me, you can override that. Most of the time people won't. My brother needs to text me in the evenings, it's going to go right through to me. If somebody, and it can wait until tomorrow, wants to text me, I'm not going to see it. I'm not saying I'm not on my phone. I'm just saying that it does not always capture my attention all the time. The other thing I would encourage you to do is go into your settings and go into your notification settings. And first, be totally surprised and disappointed in how many different apps are trying to notify you of something. And then turn off every single thing that you possibly can. I'm sorry, you're not the National Weather Service when there's a new level in Block Blast. Like, I don't need that notification. I probably every 6 months go in and check that setting to just make sure that some new app is not trying to give me, a ton of notifications that I don't need. So we are creatures that will respond to stimuli. That notification pops up. You're probably going to stop what you're doing and check it. And there's another decision of your 35,000 plus that has to be made in that moment. Okay, going on, remove. Here's the most controversial thing of the whole day. Please consider taking your school email off your phone. The end. I've had it on my phone for 1 week, and then there's an exception. But when I started teaching at Panhandle in 2010, the tech guy came to me and he said, "Hey, you've got an iPhone? I'll put your email on your iPhone." I said, "Okay, great." And after 7 days of that, I said, "I never want to do that ever again." I could not unplug from the job because I was not going to unplug from my phone. And so I took it off immediately. I never have my school email on my phone. The exception, though, I was thinking about is when we travel with students and we're going to stay in a hotel, that's like kind of a deeper level of travel. I will put it back on in case the travel clerk is trying to get a hold of me. A parent needs to email about a medication. I feel like that's a pretty reasonable exception to that. But it also makes email more able quickly to be tamed as well, because it cannot be something that is constantly pinging you with a notification. Recharge. Now, I don't think this is as controversial, but I don't charge my phone by my bedside table. It's in a different room in my home office. And when I start my nightly routine, the actual first thing I do is I go put it on the charger. I do not see my phone until the next morning after I'm completely ready to go to work, and I grab it off of there. My phone, and maybe yours too, will keep me from going to bed at a reasonable hour. It'll keep my brain from shutting off and actually being able to rest. And in the mornings, I'm doing this entire session to basically tell you that I have no self-control whatsoever. If it is on my bedside table, I will be on it and doom scrolling well past any reasonable amount of time when I should have gone to bed. So I don't have the control to be able to do that. Some people do, and my wife is one of them. I am always surprised when she just puts her phone on the charger and then starts reading a book and she ignores it. Like, that's like superpower level stuff, right? The phone not only keeps me from unwinding and being able to go to bed, but it keeps me from reading, which is something that I love to do. But if I have the choice between a physical book and my smartphone, I won't choose the book. I'll choose the smartphone every time. So that one to me is also really important. May not be universal in this room, but it's important to consider that maybe it's controlling you in ways that you had not necessarily considered. And then reset. So this is probably the one that I struggle with the most, but that is just putting the phone somewhere else while I'm focusing in on a task that needs to be done. Taking a technology break, kind of resetting my dependence on technology. One thing that I've tried to do with some success is if I've got to walk down to the main office from my band office, I will just leave the phone on my desk, lock my office door, and walk out. I don't need it for the 4 minutes that I'm going to be outside of the band hall, probably, right? So the other thing that I'll do is, I mentioned earlier, I write music, and if I'm not careful, the cell phone it'll interrupt that process as well. And so I will set a timer, and it literally is 45 or 50 minutes when I cannot be on my phone, and it has to make me singularly work on a task. Very often at the end of those 45 minutes, I just want to hit want to reset that timer and just keep working because I'm not distracted and I've hit a flow. Whatever that looks like for you, that's something I would encourage you to do. Find ways to reset your technology to work for you by taking those technology breaks. Okay, let's move on. Let's talk about the thing that is quite possibly the most universal of all of us, and that is email. Man, public education loves email, and it's to our detriment, right? So let me ask you this question, and you can respond. I'm actually really curious to know what your responses are. When you send an email to somebody specifically, to like one person, and you expect a response from them, what is the time frame in which you expect to receive a response? Just kind of generically. Nothing's on fire. You just have like, Braden, I just have a saxophone question. So what would you say? Like, what would your time frame be? 5 days. So within 5 days, you expect a response. Other answers? 24 hours? 24 to 48 hours? Okay. So do we all agree that probably within the same month that it was sent, we should respond, right? At Canyon, well, yeah, it depends on what part of the month. At Canyon High School, our administrator will say if somebody has sent a one-on-one message to us that requires a response, 24 hours. And given that I'm being paid to do that job, I don't feel like that's outlandish. But if we're going to say things like 5 days, 48 hours, then I think we need to also consider the expectation on us that we do not have to automatically respond to every single email just because the notification came up or just because it came up in our email inbox. So we'll kind of talk a little bit about how to manage that, but I want to recalibrate the way we think about email. It's not a fast communication. I mean, it's faster than a lot of things, certainly, but if we're going to talk about anywhere between 24 hours to 5 days, we should not expect that we have to respond to emails instantaneously. Okay? All right. Now, we're going to talk about some email strategies. In Canyon ISD, where I teach, we have sold our collective digital souls to Google. And so that's what I'm going to talk about. Although I have checked and all of these preference settings and things are available in other email clients. I just don't know how to necessarily tell you how to do that. ChatGPT would love to help you with that. Okay, so as I mentioned before, I do not allow access to my email on my phone because if something is truly an emergency, people will figure out how to contact me. And honestly, anybody who needs to contact me in the case of an emergency is going to be able to call me on my phone or come to my house, right? Emergency, it's funny how much we use the word emergency when they're really not emergencies. People will figure out how to reach you. So scheduling email. There's a book called A World Without Email by Cal Newport. I was very hopeful, but he doesn't say that this world can be without email. But one of the things that he says in that book is if you're not scheduling email, you're letting it run your life. So what I figured out is that 3 times a day, in the morning when I get to school, mid-morning when I have a natural break in my classes, and after school, that's when I check email. And it very easily keeps me in the 24 to 48 hour window of being able to respond to things. So that's something I would encourage you to do as well. Priority inbox. This has also changed my life. This is where only the emails that show up in my inbox are the ones that I really, really need to pay attention to. Okay, so let's take a look at this. That's my email inbox about 5 days ago. I have 1,755 unread emails in my email inbox. That's overwhelming. That is a task I cannot possibly ever complete. But when I filter with priority inbox, important and unread, it changes that number to 14. Now, if you're like me, a lot of those 1,755 emails are businesses who want to engage with you, organizations that are sending mass emails. They're not really expecting a response. But the fact that you're being pinged constantly in your inbox becomes an overwhelming thing to have to deal with. So that priority inbox can be a huge lifesaver. It does not filter out the rest of your inbox so that you cannot see it. It's like your spam folder. You just have to be intentional about checking that something that really did need to get through, did get through. And then I think there's even one on here. Yeah, Make Music. We all have Make Music subscriptions, but it probably doesn't need to be in my priority inbox. So I'll probably change that just needs to go to my inbox, which I check every couple of days. So that's a really big one because 14 unread emails, okay, I can do that. 1,755, I'll never climb to the top of that email mountain. The other one is my email signature, and I'm starting to see this in other places too. It's not only an opportunity for me to provide a personal touch to connect with our stakeholders, but it's also a way for me to have sort of a repository of information that's helpful that parents are generally looking for regularly. So I changed my email signature through the aid of Canva to look like this. It has a few things that you just need to know about me. Students first. I think that's just important for me to have that in this box. It also says email correspondence preferred. Okay, so all that's there. This is what I look like for the parent who might be entering our band program but has never met me. And then if it's students first, yeah, there's students in the background because that's what I'm proud of. That's what our purpose is at school. The other thing is if you scroll down, Google Google will let you link to documents in your email signature. So I'll stop for just a second and let you kind of look at what's on that list. This staves off a ton of email questions. When I started doing this, I stopped getting the, hey, when does such and such happen? Because now you have to train your people to know to look for these things. But also, Mr. Rath, how do I letter in band? Well, it's right there. Don't ask me. Just click on my email signature. Who can be my trombone private lesson teacher? Well, that's in there also. And so having information readily accessible like that is really helpful to not only taking care of the people who are in your charge, but also just making sure that you're not dealing with kind of mindless emails when there's a better way to encounter that. And then finally, I ruthlessly unsubscribe from emails. So if they show up in my priority inbox and somehow the gatekeeping did not take place, I'm sorry, I don't need to buy t-shirts from your company. I know that I am one of about 3,000 emails that you sent. I am not going to hurt anybody's feelings by unsubscribing. And the other thing is, if an email doesn't require my response, I'm not going to respond. I sure as heck am not going to reply all, right? Okay, so faculty emails come out. It's just information. I don't have to respond to that. Like why, yeah, you know what I mean? So these are little shortcuts and things that are not expectations of you, but certainly allow you to manage the email inbox thing much easier. Okay, healthy student boundaries, right? So often we pour ourselves out into our students' lives, but if we're not careful, we don't stop pouring and we over pour, and it can be very detrimental not only to our mental health, but it can also start to get into a lack of boundaries and maybe a lack of appropriateness in the job. Now, when I took over at Canyon High, a lot of students would just kind of knock on the door and they just kind of wander in and they'd say, hey, do you have a minute? I don't really know if they were having a crisis or they wanted to chat or what was going on. Yeah, what's going on? And then they would tell me this literally happened. Well, I don't want to sit next to so-and-so on the bus anymore because they looked at me wrong. It's a real example. And I know that's outlandish, but I'm sure all of you have your own example of that. That was an unnecessary conversation to have, but it was such a routine and it was such a part of the culture that we had to break it. So what I started to do is shift the band office from a social space where students could just feel like they could just come in and hang out. By the way, you're going to look like somebody who's favoriting students if some are just allowed to hang out in your office, and that's not what we want to project either. But also, it just returned it to being a place where work happens. Like this is a space where work is expected to happen. So knowing the difference in what a student needs from you and communicating that is also part of reinforcing a healthy boundary for those students. We've all had students, or will in the events of the younger teachers in the room, have students who really need to confide in a trusted adult. And you may be the only person on that campus that they feel like they can just walk in and talk to. I am not telling you to deflect that person at all. You need to hear, I had a student early in my career say, Mr. Rath, my dad beat me up last night. And I told my mom, and she said, you go tell Mr. Rath because he'll know what to do. And I knew what to do, been trained well to refer that to the correct person. And she didn't really need to tell me, but she needed me to put things into place to help her, right? Or the student who said, I couldn't get my playing assignment done because my dad kicked us out of the house and we were homeless and we slept in my car this weekend. Okay, that's an important conversation, right? But often what happens is, like the student I had named Jack, he came in 10 minutes before rehearsal. That's the worst time to try to talk to a band director. Ooh, I got a real response there. He said, I got to talk to you. I said, Jack, we got about 10 minutes for rehearsal and I got to get to the podium and you got to get your horn out. He goes, okay. I said, so can we push this off? And he said, sure. So I hop up, we have a great rehearsal. He's playing his tuba like the all-star that he was. And at the end of rehearsal, he kind of looks at me and I said, hey, do you want to talk? And he goes, yeah, do you have a few minutes? And I said, I have like 2 before the next class comes in. He goes, well, it's not a 2-minute conversation. Can I come back after school? Yeah, absolutely. Come back after school. So after school, fast forward all these hours. Here come all the kids after school. Here comes Jack. He's got his tuba strapped to his back. He's got his binder. He's got a huge smile on his face. He's about to walk towards the back door. Walks right by me. Hey, Jack, Hey, Mr. Rath, keeps walking. Hey, Jack, yeah, did you need to talk about something? Oh, yeah. So what do you need to talk about? And he goes, oh, I forgot. And so how important was that at 8:05, right? And somehow he made it through the rest of his day and it wasn't really an emergency. So those are things that I think if we're not careful, not only is it important to communicate those boundaries to students, but also if we just kind of let them come in anytime they think they're having a crisis, it just absolutely wears you down. So, sorry, Jack, your crisis is not the thing that really needed to be taken care of. Now, I will say this, I would never deflect you from somebody who's really in crisis, but you also have to remember the job that you have been hired to do is what it says in your email signature. Mine does not say school counselor. Mine does not say school disciplinarian. It does not say administrator. Sure as heck doesn't say math teacher. And so there is a point at which a student is really in crisis and they need to be referred to the counselor. Because if I start doing counseling at Canyon High, it's going to be terrible and it's not going to be what the student needs. So I had a great mentor who said, you just need to do the job that you've been hired to do. And that's what your description is in your email signature. And it has been so liberating to be able to free that up and to move on from conversations that are not really appropriate for me to have with students. Similarly, parents sometimes also have to be put in check with these boundaries as well. When I first started at Canyon High, there's an exterior door that goes directly from the band hall outside. And parents after school would just walk in and they would expect to be able to have an unannounced 5, 10, or 15-minute parent conference with me. I'm sorry, we didn't schedule anything. That's not an appropriate sort of thing, right? And so we had to immediately shut that down because the obvious thing is that's a huge security risk. I don't know who's coming on campus, but it's also really unprofessional for the parent as well. These things have to be communicated back to parents. They will also try to catch you at the end of a marching rehearsal because you're outside, and they will say, hey, quick question. That's a trap. There's no such thing as when somebody says, hey, quick question, and then they ask you the meaning of life, right? That's not going to work. So you need to very politely and kindly refer them to, hey, can you send me an email about that? I would love to meet with you, but I need to probably put that on my calendar and not just switch gears really quickly. It is okay when somebody says, hey, do you have a minute, to say no, because no is a complete sentence. You can punctuate at the end of no, and then you can explain that you would love to help them after this point, or could you follow up by email? So now you saw where it says email signature email correspondence preferred earlier on that slide. I try as much as possible to not meet in person if I can help it, because that obviously creates just a time frame that I may not really have for parents. A lot of times a parent will say they want to meet with you when what they want is no paper trail of your conversation. So if you can get them on the phone, that's much easier. But if you have to meet with a parent, I would recommend a few things. First of all, know exactly what the meeting is about. You need to prepare. You don't need to be blindsided. If they will not tell you that information, there is no meeting. I think that's fair. You're not going to tell me what the meeting's about. We're not going to have a meeting, or I'm going to have a principal in the house, okay? The other one is you shouldn't go into a meeting that doesn't have a clear stop time. And a lot of times we'll have these meetings that are set from 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock, and we'll take all 60 minutes to fix a 12-minute problem. So I will very clearly with the parent, especially specifically a grandparent that wanted to meet with me at Christmas, it sounded like she needed about 30 minutes, and I told her that's all that I had time for, and then I've got to get over to the next campus. And she said, okay. And then I played this Jedi mind trick with her, and it worked fabulously. The Jedi mind trick is when you walk into that meeting, you say, I'm so glad you could take time out of your busy day to meet with me. I know that time is of the essence and we need to move towards a solution. So let's just jump in. And that keeps the first 5 minutes from just being like talking about the weather and what else is going on. It also sets the tenor of the meeting to be an expectation that we're moving towards a solution. We're not going to sit and discuss a problem for 30 minutes. We're not sitting here at the bar having drinks, talking about the problems in our lives. We're trying to fix things. And we've got 29 and a half more minutes to get it done. These things I think are not unreasonable to try to put into place. Okay, the weekly email. This is where we send every Sunday afternoon, like I was saying, and I use ChatGPT to help format, send an email out to our stakeholders. It does take time. You front load a lot of information that needs to get pushed out. However, it doesn't eliminate, it reduces very heavily the number of those quick sort of like, hey, what time does Timmy need to be at the where do they go and how do they get their Shaco? Those emails tend to go away when you push out that information in advance. Now, our pledge at Canyon High in the band program is that we will be the best communicators on campus. And I think by and large, that's true. We don't have very many parents who feel like they don't know what's going on. And so that gets pushed out every year, every week at the beginning of the week on Sunday afternoon. It also creates a culture of parents checking the email first before they send the email just to make sure that they didn't accidentally miss something. Now, this is Briley. She's in the honors band this week at camp. She's a 2-year all-state clarinet player. This is Dress Like Your Favorite Teacher Day this past fall. That shirt says it was in the email. My wife she made a shirt for me about 5 years ago that just says it was in the email, because students would ask me these questions before we had gotten them into the routine of the weekly email. And I would just look at them and say, it's in the email. Oh, but can you tell me? Nope. And I know that sounds a little bit callous, but guess what? They realize they're going to need to go look for the information that I've already provided, not just expect me to be, we pull the lever and then whatever comes out of the machine is whatever comes out. Like, that's not fair to you as a teacher as well. You've provided that information. Okay, going one step further, and I regret that we don't have more time for this, so we might go kind of quick, but I'll make sure that it's in the handout. If we talk about routines, habits, processes, procedures, it can be kind of mindless, soulless, and robotic, and beneficial, no doubt. But we are all doing this profession because we love this crazy music thing that we get to do with kids. And so we need to be pouring back into ourselves. Part of that is the routine, but part of it is also making sure that we are looking for opportunities to serve and have purpose outside of ourselves. So what I think of, and what we talk about a lot with our student leaders, is encouraging and finding ways to be a light to people who really need that, because it creates that sense of fulfillment and purpose in our stakeholders' lives. And I often think that when you have things in the proper balance, you can tell, because somebody who is properly balanced in their lives and doesn't let the negative overshadow the positive, somebody who is able to encourage somebody else, has their own house in order first. And really, this is the best reason to have your own personal house in order, is so that you can be the encourager to your students that they need you to be. You can reciprocate what somebody did for you when you were a student. The reason we all got hooked into doing this is maybe playing our instrument is really cool, but maybe making music together and having these bonds outside of the page is a bigger deal. So one thing I'll say to parents when they email, and it's an email that needs to be responded to, is thanks for taking the time to email. I appreciate it. That's a positivity note that I can just drop at them. And the second one is, I always try to end every email with, I'm so glad your child is in our program. That is such a quick thing to be able to say. First of all, it's genuine, but second of all, parents need to know that you care about their child, not the band, but Johnny. I think those are ways that are really super simple to add some encouragement. I just read about this a few months ago. You know what gossip is, but have you heard of positive gossip? Somebody who will gossip with you and talk trash on somebody else is probably doing it behind your back when you're not around, right? What if we flip the script on that and you started saying, that person who's not in the room who really impressed you, what if that's what you talk about? That person was really impressive. That person did an incredible job. So-and-so, man, they're absolutely crushing it in this class. Positive gossip is also a way to make sure that you're not wallowing in the negativity that comes with gossip as well. Something we talk about a lot at Canyon High and with our student teachers is, would you want to be in the rehearsal that you're teaching, right? And if you're just constantly thumb on students in the ensemble, then what'll end up happening is they're not having a good time. You're not having a good time. Why are we even here? So as we build those routines in, and it allows us to be more creative and more human, are we turning that into a positivity that our students can enjoy from us? Because if I'm not having a good time in rehearsal, I guarantee no one else is having a good time in rehearsal as well. A couple of quick things. I believe strongly in the handwritten thank you note. A handwritten thank you note means that you took time to have cards printed out, shipped to your house. You got a pen out and you wrote with your terrible chicken scratch handwriting, and you sent it. John Maxwell says that the law of diminishing intent is if I want to send a thank you card and I don't have them printed up, I don't have a time to do it, and I don't have the envelope already stamped, it's not going to happen. So you see the cards, but what you don't see is the envelopes are also stamped. Because if I let the purchasing of a stamp keep me from having a thank you card, then it doesn't matter. It will never have happened. I think those things are important. We have a drum major named Cole. He is an encourager big time. He loves to send notes to the other drum majors of the schools that we're going to play as part of a gift basket. He is the reason that I have like points at Vistaprint because he goes through all of my thank you cards. He gets it. And those kids, when they come to play us, they love getting to interact with our drum majors because this is the way that we lead. They lead with that positivity. And that's one thing that I so appreciate about him is he's taken that on as something that he wants to do to encourage others. Okay, so one above, one with, one below. It is easy in this profession to think about the person that could be mentoring us. But I want us to get kind of outside of that for a second. That's important. I'm not saying it's not. But at what point are you finding people that you can pour into this profession as well? I'm very blessed to have taught at the beginning of my career with Andy Seeley from Hebron High School fame. Before he was at Hebron, he was at Randall High School in Amarillo, Texas, and I got to be his assistant. It was hard work. But one thing I watched him do constantly was bring clinicians in because it wasn't ego, it wasn't about him, it was about what could the kids get, and they would mentor him. And so I got to watch this modeled early on. And as I've gone through my career, realize that I probably need to start giving back. Honestly, this forum today is a little bit of that as well. But the other thing to think about is who do you have that you can go parallel with in your lives that you can vent to about your job? You're not necessarily seeking advice, but you are seeking somebody that you can commiserate with. We were in Fort Collins for a couple of days, week and a half ago at a drum corps show and series of rehearsals. And I was not looking for advice. You were not looking for advice, but we just talked about the things that kind of be tough or their frustrations in our job. And it's good to have that person because it builds that ability to get your cup refilled. But as your cup is refilled by a mentor or somebody that's with you, are you actively seeking somebody to pour into as well? Certainly students, but the further you get into your career, it should be young teachers, student teachers, people who reach out or admire you from things like WT Bandcamp. I don't think that that is something that we should ignore. So I would say that in the final analysis, it's really important to focus on solutions over problems. Positive people focus on solutions. Negative people tend to focus on problems. That's an easy shift to make in terms of understanding that concept. It can be harder to put into motion, but I think it's important that that is noted in a clinic about burnout, that the ways that we burn out are not just from the systems and the obvious things, but it's things like, oh, I focus too much on problems. I should focus more on the solution for that problem. That does keep you refreshed and keep you from feeling burned out. Look, you ever gotten a terrible parent email? The worst one I ever got was this past fall. In my 24th year of teaching, I just happened to not take my advice and look at this email at 9:30 before I went to bed. It kept me up all night. Anybody else there with me? Okay. Guarantee if I had waited till the next morning, and it was an accident, I was like sending lesson plans to the staff and this email bounced up. So it wasn't like I was checking email, I was just trying to send lesson plans out. It kept me up all night. I could not be objective about this email. If I had waited till the next morning, I would have been able to focus on it as a solution-based situation and not as a problem. The problem kept me up all night. If I had been fresh to it, I think I could have been more positive in my response. And those are little shifts that I think make all the difference when we're trying to stave off burnout. Okay, I love to read. Here are the essential readings, the things that I think are really, really valuable. I will put this in the handout, but if you want to take a picture, I won't stop you. One of the things that I appreciate about Atomic Habits, which is really the genesis of this clinic, is that James Clear does not try to write Atomic Habits to be a corporate environment book or an educational book or a church organizational book. He writes it so that it just talks about habits, which means you can apply it to anything, right? Now, there's a lot of great books up here, but they're kind of more corporate in nature. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, it's great, but it's really kind of an entrepreneurial sort of book, and that can be difficult to apply to education. But that's the beauty of Atomic Habits. He did keep it short and sweet for those of us with dwindling attention spans. Okay, thank you so much. This is the QR code to receive the handout once I'm able to get that crafted. Did it make it up? Okay. Okay, cool. So if you want to hop in on that, you'll just put your email in there. I will say I want to, one more time, just a huge thanks to Tamara and BJ and Band Directors Talk Shop for everything that they do for our community, but also for being so supportive to me over the years. Tamara's not making eye contact with me. Thank you. I really appreciate you. And I just wanted to say real quickly, TapSpace has a new product of mine called the Daily Drill. I know this is like the awkward part where I plug a book that I've written, but if you're looking for something different for your band that has play along tracks, go to tapspace.com and search up the Daily Drill. Super fun. If you know the 5-minute drill, the 9-minute drill, it's that, but it's for full band because clarinets should be able to have cool play along tracks too, right? I think so. Okay. Thank you so much for your time. Appreciate you. Oh, it's not too late.